Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. This is just a quick update about the Shadow of Kyoshi. We got a little interesting piece of information about something that will be revealed in the book through some of the sort of digital marketing style stuff that's been released for the book. So you can find this stuff if you go to Edelweiss and just look up the Avatar books and find the Shadow of Kyoshi listing. And then if you sort of like expand open some of the details on it and open up this section here called links, if you click on this, it will basically download the digital merchandising kit, which I have here. It's a zip file, it's a zip folder, you extract it and you get access to these sort of marketing images basically. So there's nothing too much to say about most of them. It's just, you know, 7/21 is the release date. It's sort of pre-order stuff. It's for websites to put up to promote the book. I suppose social media stuff as well, to act as banners, as just a way to be like, here is a built-in thing we are giving you as a very simple way to promote this book. And yeah, nothing too much to say on this at all, just that, you know, it seems like they're going all in to pretty heavily promote this book. There's also this, if you look at the file name, this is called a pre-order poster final. So I guess depending on where you order it from, you are going to get a poster, which is just a clean version of the cover. But the big things in the merchandising kit are these two PDFs. This second one here, there's not too much to talk about. It's just like a general guide for, like, you know, Amulet books, giving an insight into like, this is how potentially are good ways to, you know, sell the book to people. There's nothing particularly interesting about it, of just noting the first book and stuff like that. Here's all these images to promote as banner ads and so on. Here's who they want to sell it to, of like, you know, fans of strong female heroines and so on. It's just a, you know, general genre stuffs. These are the genres that this book covers. This is who the book will appeal to. Avatar fans, of course, will want to read this, so on. It's just a slight insight into the marketing, I suppose, how they actually do it. The other one, though, the other PDF is the more interesting one. This is this letter to booksellers from FCE. The information is like basically the last line here, but I'll quickly go and read it, because it's a nice little thing. If there's anything I've learned over my life, it's that being good at one thing doesn't necessarily make you good at another. This is Kyoshi's struggle in the Shadow of Kyoshi. As the newly recognized Avatar, she's gotten her massive power under better control, but doesn't always have a venue to use it. She knows how to navigate the underbelly of society, but has no training in high politics. She has a strong, well-defined sense of justice, but the world around her is more than willing to let injustices slide. Kyoshi also has to deal with uncertain footing in a new land. How she learns about the Fire Nation and its culture was a gratifying part to write, and will hopefully satisfy readers with a craving for lore. So that's basically FCE saying that this is going to be quite heavily set in the Fire Nation, and he's telling us there's a lot of lore about the Fire Nation. In the same way that we learned a lot about the Earth Kingdom and the Dao Fei and the culture basically of the Earth Kingdom through the first book, we're going to, I suppose, get that same level of insight but into the Fire Nation this time out. So that's good to get that detail. Even just from the excerpt, the more recent one that touched more on the Fire Nation, them arriving, it gave you that insight into details, place names. That's exactly what we want. In Book 1, Kyoshi was fixated on her enemies, but in Book 2, as a public figure, everyone is fixated on her. Continuing Kyoshi's story meant tackling how she views herself and how she views her relationships. While this is an Avatar book, it's also still a young adult book, so these issues are at the forefront of every conflict. I'm excited because this is the book where Kyoshi decides what kind of Avatar she wants to be. I'm hoping you and your readers will be excited too. And if that doesn't do the trick, then tell them we finally learn what kind of animal companion Kyoshi has. It's not a shark squid, FCE. So, pretty nice, you know. Obviously this is a letter aimed at basically, I suppose, owners of bookstores. It's just, this is why the insight into this book, this is why this is a book you should recommend to your customers and so on. But really, in a way, it just feels like it's a letter to sort of readers of like, this is actually a very good way to sell the book to people. This little sort of almost jokey mention at the end of like, if they're not interested in the book just because of the sort of themes, just tell them there's an interesting kind of information reveal. And that's always a good way to get Avatar fans invested, which is exactly sort of the news. This is the news piece basically that I'm talking about in the video. We are going to learn in the Shadow of Kyoshi what Kyoshi's animal guide is, animal companion is, which we didn't know before. I suppose there was some speculation after the first book of like, is it just like Peng Peng, Peng Peng, whatever way you want to pronounce it? Kelsong's bison, just because Kyoshi technically took ownership of that bison at that point. It made sort of sense with the idea of like Kyoshi being an Earth avatar, but having the lineage connection back to the air nomads, that would be an oddly fitting animal companion for her. But I suppose him saying that it's revealed here is basically saying it's not something that obvious. So that's actually quite interesting. I don't really get what he means by the whole "it's not a shark squid" thing, in the sense that, like, was anyone predicting it was? We've never even seen a shark squid as far as I'm aware. That the only time I think shark squid is mentioned in like the entire franchise is that like Boomy mentions it in Civil Wars Part 1 in just some dialogue. Like that, like he's afraid of it, that like he was like attacked by one before. It's kind of an almost comedy scene as he's like comedically afraid of it. I think when Milo actually mentions it, and then Boomy reacts to it. Not exactly sure what the reference is there of like, is it something similar to a shark squid? I guess given that most of this book is set in the Fire Nation, it might be a Fire Nation animal. I suppose it depends on what way they're going to do this. Of like, has Kyoshi met her animal companion in between the sort of time, the gap of time between the two books, and by the time we properly get into the story, like the animal which is already met before is brought back into things? Or is she actually going to meet this animal for the first time in this book, and we'll actually see an avatar sort of meet their animal companion, sort of like Juan met Mula the cat deer, just like saved her, and that's how the bond formed. That could be a very, very interesting aspect of this book, depending on the details surrounding how it's written, in that these books give a lot of insight into details. So is it going to be as simple as just Kyoshi meets an animal, she gets friendly with it, they decide to travel together, it's just a friendship with an animal? Or will they reveal some sort of a thing where like Kyoshi sensed a connection with this animal, like spiritually, that it is truly like linked in the same way that like the reincarnations of the avatars are sort of linked? Is there that same sort of idea of, an animal is also always sort of reborn every generation to sort of be the animal guide of the avatar, or what? How much of a major factor is that? The reason I think a lot of people make a big deal about it is because, well, Fang, Roku's dragon, is like a spirit, like basically along with Roku. That suggests a very deep connection that we don't really see any spirits apart from effectively like the avatar act as like a thing beyond that. And so if it is facilitated through Rava, that would suggest that like Rava also sort of allows like the avatar to locate their new animal guide. It gets kind of technical depending on what way you want to consider it. Is it just the situation where typically an avatar does meet an animal that they bond with, or is it an actual sort of proper lore spiritual connection thing where there is an animal out there specifically that is like a reincarnation of Mula or something like that? That's where it's sort of hard to exactly picture it. But yeah, it's difficult to predict like what exact animal it could be. Again, it's mostly set in the Fire Nation, so it would have to probably be a Fire Nation animal. Typically the avatars would have animals that are sort of like usable for like travel to some degree. So it's either going to be a very small animal that can just be a sort of companion, like a Momo, that can kind of, Kyoshi can just carry around on her shoulder, or it'll be a big animal that she can kind of ride on in some way. So That's the speculation. I'm wondering, might they commit to something like it being like a mongoose lizard or something like that, an eelhound type thing, just some sort of a mount for Kyoshi to just, you know, have with her, in that sense, like ostrich horse or something like that. But that's more of an Earth Kingdom animal, I suppose. So, yeah, they have options, but I think you can focus it down a little bit more than you sort of maybe think. But again, it could surprise us completely, like an animal we absolutely don't expect it to be, and Kyoshi becomes Kyoshi's animal guide. Like imagine it was just, if it was just like a weird animal, like a hybrid, like cow something or other, and it's not particularly usable, but it happens to be Kyoshi's animal guide. That's the sort of thing you almost think like it isn't going to happen that way. It would have to be an animal that would be useful to Kyoshi, like in the field. She's a very active avatar, so it'll have to be something like that. But yeah, not too long now, 3 weeks until this book is out. I do plan to do a lot of the same sort of review content that I did for the Rise of Kyoshi. So I will be planning to do a non-spoiler review, spoiler review, and I will also be starting, I suppose, chapter analysis videos, and I do expect to do them for every single chapter, as well as the usual podcast stuff. I'll do everything I can to get this book in as early as possible, but there's been delays with some of the other recent books. Of like my copy of The Promise Omnibus still hasn't shipped out yet, so I don't know when I'll be getting that. And of course my Imbalance copy was a bit late arriving as well, so that might be the case here. So I might have to do something to try and get the ebook the day it comes out. I'll see how that goes, and we'll see potentially if there might be some way to, like, you know, some places are still listing the Shadow of Kyoshi audiobook is coming out on the 21st of July, so that might be something to look out for as well. But I don't think that will actually happen. But yeah, just be aware that this is pretty much the next thing we're expecting to happen. I suppose we're still waiting for news about the next like Korra comic announcement, because like it's looking a bit light on content. We have Shadow of Kyoshi, then Katara and the Pirate Silver as new content this year, and that's pretty much it. The rest of the books are reprints, and reprints all the way into like 2021, so we need some new books announced. And then the other thing is, of course, the second that this book comes out, we're immediately going to be asking the question, what's the next Avatar novel? Is there a plan to do more? It's obviously not going to be a third Kyoshi book, but, you know, they can't, surely they're not just going to leave it as 2 novels. There has to be a plan to do more, because it worked so well. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on some of this stuff from the digital merchandising kit, and I suppose mainly just that idea of what type of animal do you think is going to be revealed as Kyoshi's animal guide, given that it's not a shark squid, and it probably likely isn't a sky bison or a badger mole or something like that. I suppose maybe it could be a badger mole. That would be very cool. I've always wanted that to kind of be a thing, but again, we're in the Fire Nation, so it probably isn't a badger mole. But you know, let me know your thoughts on that. How excited are you for the Shadow of Kyoshi? But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.